Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the AJA weekly Zoom event. Welcome to people watching live on Zoom, who can come in, and people watching on Facebook, as well as to those hearing the replay on J-Air Community Radio and on YouTube. My name is Robert Gregory. Tonight's topic is very important and very timely. Councils across Australia have been inserting themselves into the Middle East conflict and pushing for divisive boycotts against the Jewish state. Is your council part of the problem? And what can you do to help? With local government elections in both New South Wales and Victoria in the next few weeks, and these type of antics going on in other states as well, this topic is particularly relevant right now. Our guest tonight, Dean Hurlston, is president of Council Watch, which aims to keep councils honest by researching, investigating, and publishing information to ensure accountability. Thank you for joining us tonight, Dean.
Thank you for having me. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for taking your time out. And I wanted to thank the AJA and the entire Jewish community for inviting me. It is an honour to be here tonight and to speak with you. I want to start tonight with two very important words that will mean a lot to many of you. Never again. It's a point of phrase that many of us know that was coined intentionally by Holocaust survivors. But little did they know in downtown Sydney or Melbourne and other states in our country that this would come to be competing with From the River to the Sea in their local councils. Accessing public libraries or council buildings somehow has turned into a fight between two nations who are involved in a global conflict. Never did we want children of Holocaust survivors or their children's children to experience such things from their local council. So is it the role of local government to ever take a position in a global or geopolitical context or war or dispute? Well, the answer is quite complex. And I won't bore you tonight with a long-winded answer, but I will start with how we got here, because it is really important that we understand how the heck this happened in the first place. Are local councils meant to facilitate the outpouring of revenge? No, they're not. Should local councils be at all involved in global conflicts in the way we're seeing it today? Absolutely not. But first we need to look, as I said, how we got here. Local councils have existed a long time. In fact, they existed before our federation even existed. And they were at the forefront of delivering local services. You know, the stuff that we always talk about: roads, footpaths, kids' playgrounds, parks, cleaning the streets, and most importantly, emptying our rubbish bins. Don't forget telling us how to recycle. They're also meant to run pools and recreation centres, provide really good access to car parking in high street locations. Yeah, the list is long, and it's pretty basic. It should be the same things. For the most part, these are vital, needed community services that we all are used to getting from a council. There is no one in our community that doesn't benefit in some way from council services. For many of us and many of you on this live stream, you pay your rates each year. You probably get that dreaded bill and think, oh, it's gone up again. And it's one of those bills that we just know we have to pay. But we don't expect our councils to weaponise political contexts or political issues the way they have been using our ratepayers' money. But they do. What we've seen is political activists running amok in our councils, using public money that we've given them to fight causes that are essentially not in the remit of local councils. And it is happening in every way, shape and form you can imagine. What we need to do is actually ensure that we put pressure back on our councils to actually provide those services and stick within the guidelines. Over the last 30 years, though, local councils have seen the expectations of communities exponentially rise. And what that's meant is that communities have often pushed local councils into every direction they can think of. These days, local councils are more heavily involved in state and federal lobbying and activism than ever before. They do this often through a hidden model of committees and bad actors, all behind the scenes, often also involving staff in the organisation. You see, what we've discovered at Council Watch with a lot of our friends is that many of the staff who are actually writing policy in local councils have also got political motivations and ambitions. And those ambitions are being seen in the things that they're pushing. When you overlay this with well-placed connected networks of activists and councillors who are activists, you've got a governing body who's ushering in reforms in a dramatic way. Right now, just to give you a couple of examples, our local councils are a hotbed of activism. You only need to look at the following issues: climate change. Many metropolitan councils in our states have issued climate emergencies and action plans to combat the looming threat of earth combusting next week. In some plans, the council has employed climate change officers to even roam suburbs measuring temperatures and the rise on a daily basis. And then, of course, they come up with what needs to be done. The City of Melbourne has 2 full-time staff who simply measure temperatures at different points of the day. We also have fake solar panel schemes running rampant throughout our councils, where councils are actually recommending, in some cases, dodgy installers that put many homes at risk of fire. Those fake solar schemes are an extension of climate change plans and actions. They pretend to offer multiple installers, but quite often have just one, but you wouldn't know that. Refugees and asylum seekers, obviously something we all would care about. In most states, there's a mayoral task force. In Melbourne in particular, there are over 70 mayors who meet monthly, along with staff of all of their respective councils, to actually come up with an action plan and ways to lobby the federal government on making asylum seekers getting visas faster, easier, and quicker from the federal government. Is that their job? We know the bicycle lobby. We all know how effective the lycra wearing lobby has been at convincing the City of Melbourne that bike lanes need to go ahead of business, and installing tens of kilometres of useless bike lanes that have killed many long established businesses. Someone in the room finally worked out that they needed to pause them, and now the contest is on as to who will rip them up. The Rainbow Pride lobby, the same issue here as above, with many including asking children in libraries for their pronouns, gender ideology being inserted to all manner of things, and books that parents probably would not want in libraries. And lastly, the Indigenous issue of treaty. This is also now being run, despite the referendum, from inside our councils, and it's being done by activists and council officers intentionally. We already have some councils across metropolitan suburbs paying annual payments in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to Indigenous corporations to name streets and hold smoking ceremonies. There is a lot of money in welcome to countries and smoking ceremonies, a lot of public money. What we know is that academics have long planned this. For anyone who's been to university, we tend to know that the academics are often quite left-leaning. There's nothing wrong with that. However, what has happened is instead of teaching us to think, they've told us what we should be thinking. And this has now crept into our local councils. We've seen a 20-year plan come to fruition. And for many of us, it somehow stuck on us while we were very busy doing life. What each local government act in every state in Australia says is that council staff, just like any staff in government, are meant to be apolitical. They should never, ever hold a view. The funny thing is, a good research of many of the LinkedIn profiles of council staff reveals very clear political alignments, some with organisations like GetUp, and some with very radical organisations like Extinction Rebellion. The legislated role of council staff to be apolitical seems to be optional. What's happened instead is that we've also had a new breed of activists. In the last 20 years, we have seen councillors, activist councillors, deliberately running for council, not to look after their community, but to bring their ideology with them. We've seen all of these motions come from these activist councillors, and they've been gobbled up by the executives and staff within councils, and it is literally a frenzy of crazy ideas. We've seen the politicisation of these councillor roles and staff. We now have record numbers of Greens, Socialists, Teals, and all manner of radical leftists within our council organisations. We don't say that they're illegitimate because, of course, they have been lawfully elected. Unfortunately, in many cases, they have been wolf in sheep's clothing. Many residents have voted for these councillors not knowing their political allegiance, their activism background, and their actual ideology. And this has presented a real problem because what that has meant is a very, very fast-paced change within our local government sector. The political parties are not stupid either. Well, some. We'd say certainly that the Greens have set the standard in how to infiltrate, run, control, and usurp local communities. As someone who has a good relationship with the Greens and a bad relationship at times, I tend to find that there are two types of Greens: the actual general community-focused Green and the activist Green. Unfortunately, there's more activist Greens within councils than there are community-focused. What we also say is that these political parties understand the power of grifting and of cottage industries that they can actually enjoy off public money. What we have seen make its way into many local councils is rainbow, treaty, and a whole range of other business models that are taking public money and community grants and using them for political activism. What we've also seen is that these, what I would say are bad actors and activists, have noticed largely that you and I, the majority of our community, no longer attends council meetings. I mean, if I was to ask you to stick your hand up when you last attended a council meeting, I'd say only a few of you might stick your hand up in the last 1 or 2 years. Good on you, Marianne. And the problem with that is it's all being done without many of us actually knowing what they're doing. It takes us to actually know and get involved. And there was a watershed moment, folks, in the last probably 10, 15 years. The loss of local media in our local suburbs, in our metropolitan cities, is actually what has underpinned a lot of this. The loss of local media telling us each week what our council is doing, what they're up to, and what sorts of decisions they are making has meant that largely we're blind to what's happening until some sort of controversy smacks the community in the face. Without honest local media telling local stories, councils have been able to confect their own narrative, and bad actors have been able to control the narrative around heading in a particular political direction. When you add the fact that corporate bosses have also insulated themselves from the real community, council staff no longer talk to the community, they manage the relationship with the community. They pay consultants to ask us what we think and then tell us what we answered. When they do that, the more they do that, the more CEOs, executives, and councillors are removed from being in touch with the pulse of the real community. And the Jewish community is no different. Unfortunately, many of our councillors are not connected to what's happening in our community. We've seen the exact same model being worked on that I mentioned above around all those activism levers by the pro-Palestine lobby. Not only have they come to our universities, our workplaces, and everywhere else, they've embedded themselves to the point where they are now advising local government. Yes, I kid you not, several councils across the country are now taking advice from APAN on how to deal with the pro-Palestine narrative. That, for me, is a line that we should never cross. When you have organisations that have questions over them being advisors to councils, executives, and powerful decision makers in a local council, we know that there is a problem, that apolitical stance is gone. We also we are very concerned, I should say, around the flow of money from councils via grants to many local organisations. How many councils have given the Jewish community grants for safety? How many councils have actually said, you know what, this is impacting on the Jewish community, how can we help? What can we do? Can we fund you extra security? None that I'm aware of, but the pro-Palestine movement certainly has got their attention. We have a problem when all of this is actually being driven from not just outside, but from within. When we have CEOs fighting to have a policy that they can choose alone to fly the Palestinian flag on their council building, we have a governance problem. In Victoria, local council funding alone is 15 billion, and across the entire country, it's 45 billion a year. It's significant dollars. It is meant to be spent on local services. Skimming money off the system through cottage industries and grifting is not actually the key aim of many bad actors. It's controlling the direction and decision-making of the governing body, and they are well embedded. It's working because the activists now have control of what we would call the asylum. The non-political role has become inherently political. We know anecdotally from many council staff whistleblowers that the more pro-Palestine and the more pro-anti-Israel you are, unfortunately, the better you're received within the organisation. So back to the original question and the premise of tonight's meeting. Should our local councils actually be involved at all in a global conflict? In any global conflict? The answer is a loud and resounding no. Yes, they do have a role, but not directly. You and I pay state and federal governments tax to deal with complex national and global geopolitical issues. We don't pay our councils to double up or triple the effort. We just want them to focus on local services. Our councils have no role and certainly have no experience or qualifications in foreign affairs, intelligence, or diplomacy. I can't remember the last time that I saw a council CEO jumping on a plane to go and speak to the UN. It's not their role. In fact, in Melbourne, we recently had a CEO, the CEO of Dandenong Council, Ms. Jackie Wetherill, make a statement to the media. And it was that the city of Dandenong was well equipped to deal with international issues and the international stage. That is frightening. These people are not qualified, and respectfully, they are hacks. They could do more damage than good. We don't want our councils entering into areas that they don't know anything about. Further, we don't think that any world leader, certainly not the leaders of any conflict that's currently underway, are focused at all on the social media ramblings of a bunch of local councillors and CEOs within Australia. They're the last people they're going to take advice from. They're simply not that important. What we do know is that local council has no role in negotiating a ceasefire or a hostage exchange. And for them to ever think that they have a role in speaking about these matters is not just fanciful, it's downright disrespectful. It is utterly disrespectful to everyone who is affected. The role of council, though, is to look out for residents, all residents, regardless of their background, regardless of what's happening in the world. Their job is to simply look out for, care and support the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and any other community without any bias, without any prejudice, without any opinion. And it's the opinions that we don't want to hear. The role of council is to offer support services, be it grief counselling, be it comfort, be it social events. That is the role of a local council, to help us actually find a way through, to knit the fabric of our communities back together, to knit us together to find common ground in grief, in tragedy, and in triumph. It is not to take a position. By raising the Palestinian flag, councils are saying we have lost control. We have lost control of what our role is. We have lost control of our senses. It is not because they are somehow more caring or less caring against any other people group. It is that they have lost control of what they are meant to do. Let me give you a really simple example. A council's role as a statutory body is to not get in the middle of a fight between two neighbours. House A and House B sit next to each other. They don't like each other's materials on the outside of the house. One colour brick is not the favourite of the other. They end up in a fight over the colour of bricks on their house. Do you see council officers rushing to their aid to sort out their fight? If they haven't broken a local law by the choice of their colour brick, the council officers will stay out of it and simply try and help them resolve it themselves. That's what council should be doing. Loving the Jewish community, looking after the community, and looking after everyone in the community without bias, without an opinion. What we would see if those two neighbours were having a fight over the colour of their bricks is that Victoria Police would probably step in and deal with it if they needed to. And if council was in the way, they'd certainly be told to get out of the way. So why are we then saying that councils have a role in a global conflict taking place 14,000 kilometres away? Well, again, the activists have got control of the asylum. So what can you do tonight? We can, as a group of people, fight back. And it has to be in the little things. And to be really honest, it needs more than just the Jewish community to do so. In fact, it needs non-Jewish people to stand up to their local councils and say, no, this is not your role. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's just not your role. I want you to focus on the local issues. And I want you to support the Jewish community instead of rubbishing them. We know that most people don't have time, an inordinate amount of time, to fix the problems. And it's going to take a lot of work. And that's why Council Watch is here. What we are trying to do is fill the void of the local media that doesn't exist anymore, tell the council stories, and help locals step in and out of issues when you need to. You don't have time to go to every council meeting. You don't have time to read the minutes. I think you'd rather do anything but do that. So our job is to actually bring you those stories and bring you the issues when they matter and when there is an opportunity for you to be involved. We also work extensively with the media to actually tell these stories in mainstream media. And quite often, it takes a lot of work and a lot of lobbying from us to tell these stories because many of the mainstream media outlets don't want to tell them. So we have to find ways to tell the stories, to actually get it into the mainstream, to investigate, to research, to follow the money, and to expose the links. I don't know about you, but when I heard that APAN was actually consulting to councils, it sent chills through my body. I cannot for the life of me understand why any council would go to such a group and actually seek their counsel. It is inherently unfair on the Jewish community. We also have elections, as Robert said before, in both New South Wales and Victoria. And it's really important, please, I ask everybody on this call tonight, look at your candidates, ask them questions, ring them up, write emails to them, get them to tell you what organisations they've actually worked in conjunction with, where they've volunteered, if they're a member of a political party, if they've ever been a member of a political party, because many quit before the election, and actually dig down into who these candidates are so that we stop electing wolves in sheep's clothing. In Victoria, we are trialling for the first time, New South Wales, sorry that we've just missed the gate on this one, a candidate questionnaire where we're asking every candidate to complete 15 minutes of questions that actually divulge to us everything about their activism, their involvement in political parties, and their views on a whole range of topics, including global conflicts, climate change, and LGBTQI ideology. Now, the reason we're doing that is not in any way to catch anybody out, is not in any way to score a good or a bad answer, but simply to put in front of you, the voter, an honest answer from a candidate, not a brochure they've put in your letterbox that tells you what they want you to believe. This is probably the only way we can actually get this information on the radar so that people can actually make better decisions. So please, if you are in Victoria, jump on our website, sign up. It's just an email. It's no big deal. And we can tell you what everyone in your actual electorate said before you actually vote. Lastly, I just wanted to chat very briefly around how we change this. Local councils have the largest impact on how we live our lives. You know, when they don't empty the bins, when they get it wrong, when they stuff up the traffic, don't fix the potholes, And when they wonder why we're all angry while they're off on a junket in another country, there's a problem. And the problem is with governance. It's around how our councils are run and what they're focused on. What we keep seeing is that councillors in the chamber are acting on emotion, not fact, not logic, and not evidence. And they're certainly not acting on the weight of evidence from the community. The role of a councillor is to make decisions in the best interests of their local community. Nothing more, nothing less. Did you notice in that statement, there is no word global or international? The global and international context is not in the legislation for a very strong reason. Of course, the role of a councillor is to make good decisions for the community and to spend that money really, really well on local stuff that really makes a difference. What we need in our chambers is strong, smart, educated people who love their community. And that includes the Jewish community no differently to anyone else, and simply wants to serve. That doesn't come with an ideology, that comes with 2 ears and listens and responds to what the community says. Tonight, I'll ask all of you, when this concludes, to jump on our website, councilwatch.com.au. We are Australia-wide. We are free. We are a free volunteer-based service. Of course, we do need money to do things, and I'm constantly amazed at how generous people are. But we form local branches. We get people involved where you're at, whether you want to get heavily involved, whether you want to complete surveys, whether you want to just be someone who receives information related to your local area. We will tailor it to everything that you may or may not want to do. But by being on our mailing list, we can at least have the conversation with you and you can be heard. Because after all, the job of our local council is to ensure that you are heard. Not the activists, not the bad actors, not those with the agenda that they've been planning for 20 years. You, the resident who lives, works, and plays in the local area. And lastly, before I take a couple of questions, I just wanted to share an anecdote about my love for the Jewish community. Some of you may know, if you're a subscriber of Council Watch, that I'm an openly gay man that speaks very heavily against the LGBTQ ideology that's in our councils and government. I have 2 children myself and a granddaughter who I adore. My partner, who happens to be the mayor of the city of Stonington in Melbourne, works for a wonderful and kind Jewish family and has for 35 years. They are like family to us. I've had the privilege of some very close Jewish friends who've always cared for me no matter what. And funnily enough, since October 7, that network has expanded exponentially. In 2019, I last went to Israel for a holiday. I was so excited to go to Israel for the first time. I long considered that Australia actually set the example of the friendly person to an international tourist. And I think we do an okay job. I can say I was personally overwhelmed by the acceptance and kindness shown to me and my partner, 2 gay men in a foreign country. We made conversation with people one night at dinner who just happened to be sitting on the table next to us. What was so interesting to me was that this was a group of 20-year-olds who had no reason to talk to 2 strange men from Australia that weren't looking for conversation. 2 late 40-year-old men who looked very clearly together. They took us under their wing. They talked to us. They explained many things that we didn't know about Tel Aviv and Jewish history. And then they decided to take us out night clubbing. I can tell you we couldn't keep up. It was a lot of fun. But what was really important was that we thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. In the days that followed, they constantly checked in on us, made sure that we were having a good time, invited us to their home for Shabbat, one of the most beautiful things they could do, and they hung out with us and introduced us to their family and friends and their wider network. It made us feel a sense of belonging on holiday that we've never felt before. They did it because they wanted to. There was nothing in it for them. They didn't have an agenda. They shared with us what they loved about Israel and what they loved about their country. We've never felt more safer and more cared for in a foreign country as strangers. For me, someone who is part of the LGBTQIA+ community, if you can remember the acronym. I have never felt more accepted by a bunch of foreigners in my life. It was a very emotional experience to feel loved, accepted, and not judged, especially as two older gay men in a country and an area where we had been on guard. We had just come from Turkey. Unlike many other countries, there was no scam to be held, no robbery, no grifting, no trying to get something out of us. There was just kindness. And that is the legacy that we remember. What an amazing and deeply profound experience for me and my partner, and an affection for Israel that we could never match anywhere else. So thank you again tonight for listening, and I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you for that very informative talk and very touching personal story as well. I can see we've got a lot of questions coming from the chat. We've got a lot of people with hands up. So just a reminder, the best way to ask a question is to raise your hand. We might go to some first-time questioners as well today. I see we've got some first-time people, but before we do that, we will just go to David, who'll provide us with an update about what's happening next week, and then we'll go to some questions.
Okay, if that's better, I can unmute myself and be heard. Well, as we do every week, at the end of the event, in addition to going to the Council Watch website, we want you to go to the AJA website, jewishassociation.org.au. If you're not yet signed up for the emails, make sure that you do so. Please consider making a donation as well. We need all the support we can get at this time. So just having a quick look at what's happening next week. We have a particularly interesting guest, the CEO of the Ayn Rand Institute, one of the leading international think tanks. And as we see an environment where personal freedoms are being challenged a lot by various government actors, we will be discussing the moral case for liberty with Tal Tzfani, and it's obvious that the CEO of the Ayn Rand Institute is part of our tribe. Before we go to questions, generally, I want to thank you, Dean, for really an excellent presentation and the work you do. And a preliminary question. Is it not true that the role of councils is governed by a local government act, at least that's the name of it in New South Wales, and there is a local government minister? As far as I know, there's no provision in the legislation which provides a role for local government in foreign affairs. So why is it that the state governments that can have the power of intervention are not keeping the local governments in their lane?
Thanks, David. It's a very good question. So the consistencies across all councils, exactly as you said, in each state there is a local government minister. Councils are not autonomous government. They are simply a delegated statutory corporation from the state. So the state parliaments in every state control councils. What that means is any state could pass a bill at any stage to restrict, shut down, or change councils, and they can do nothing to stop that. What we would like to see, and we have actually been extensively speaking to the Liberal Party about this and the crossbenchers, is a change across many states that the state parliaments ban councils from stepping outside of issues in their local areas. Because it's in the fine print. In each of the local government acts, there are clauses like this. Victoria, for example, a council can do any and all things required to achieve its objectives. Now, because there is no within its municipality or state, it means any and all things means they could fly somebody to the moon. So unfortunately, David, what that means is they take extreme liberty, and activists who come in with a bad agenda can literally say, well, we'll do all of those things because nothing stops us. What we actually saw in Victoria was the local government minister, Melissa Horne, send a letter to the Dandenong Council saying, this is not your role. It is a global geopolitical conflict. You need to stay out of it. And it ended up in an absolute bun fight between the state parliamentarians and the local government minister, to the point where the local government minister then lost a lot of her own electorate's Muslim population. So now she's running a Muslim candidate that is pro-Palestine in her local electorate and running around with that candidate to try and win the Muslim vote back. So, true form, politicians react to what serves them, not what serves the community. So what we really need to see in state legislation is some really tight restrictions there.
So we've actually, in New South Wales, we called on the local government minister, Ron Honig, who's actually a member of the Jewish community, to take some action after his Labor colleagues in Canterbury Bankstown Council passed a boycott of Israel. But unfortunately, haven't heard of him taking any action. And yeah, we intend to have more to say on that. So just before we go to questions, I can see we've got a few councillors and some council candidates as well in the audience. Only the good ones, obviously. So welcome to everyone. And yeah, everyone just keep the questions brief because we've got a lot of questions and just one question a person. Charlotte, would you like to ask your question?
You need to unmute, Charlotte.
Yep. Sorry, everyone. Thank you, Dean. You are just such an impressive speaker, and I love it whenever I hear you on 3AW. My concern with the upcoming local elections is, and I think this is gaming the situation, it's going to be postal votes.
Yes.
And I've already heard the loud and prolific Green Party in the city of Port Phillip brag that, we have many people that are going to scour all the high-density letterboxes, capture the voting papers, and we're going to be making sure we get our candidates in.
So that's a really good point, Charlotte. You're right. They're very, very well heeled. They're well organised. But what I really want to encourage the group here tonight is, believe it or not, they're the minority. Minority. I'm going to say that really clearly. They're the minority. And the same with, if you just look at the political party activists in the Labor Party, in the Teals, they're actually small cohorts. And so what this just requires is everybody to be informed and everybody to make rational, calm decisions. Yes, we should be alarmed, but we don't need to overreact. We just need to make really calm, rational decisions. Now, I think what we will see, unfortunately, in the elections is we will see an increase in some representation, particularly in some demographics where, in New South Wales and Victoria, where they are already probably quite a left-leaning community. But I think what's going to happen out of that is something really good, dare I say it. The more left they go, the more they lean into that social sort of dogma, the more their service levels naturally correlate and go down, and the more they become dissatisfied. We've seen that really clearly in the evidence across Victoria and New South Wales. And the more that happens, the more it will actually embolden ordinary people to actually say, we just want to return to the centre where we do the things we should be doing. So I really do want to encourage everybody tonight. It will get better. It just may get worse on the way to getting better.
Thank you.
Okay, Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Robert, and thank you, Dean. Dean, I know one of our local councillors, and he tells me that he spends about 25 hours a week working on council issues. And of course, it's all voluntary. So I guess naturally you're going to get retired people wanting to be on council, probably unemployed as well. I'm just wondering, are you happy that this is a good model for running local councils, or do you think that it may be time to sort of revisit this given the amount of work involved?
Well, I think, Alan, you asked probably the million-dollar question. There are a lot of people who would automatically say, no, we don't want to pay councillors more. We don't want to spend more. But let's be clear, you get what you pay for. What we would rather see, now bear in mind what councils are doing. I don't know of anyone else in many occupations, unless you have been a CEO or an executive or a director on a very large company. Remember, these councils control $3, $4, $5 billion of assets, mostly in a metropolitan area. They have a CEO earning somewhere between $300,000 and $700,000 a year. They have thousands of staff in some cases. They deliver 130 services, and their budgets are somewhere in the order of $1 to $3 to $700 million a year. That is an extraordinary role to be in. It isn't something that is just some sort of part-time, lollipop crossing lady that you can go home and forget about the job. The pressures on councillors are extreme. It is a lot of work, and you are making generational decisions. You are making decisions on behalf of the community that often can be incredibly difficult to make, because you're making a decision where community members may absolutely hate the decision and others may love the decision, and you have to referee that life-changing decision. What I would say to anyone is it's a great reward. It's an incredible role, but it needs to be a role that's well remunerated. And to be fair, candidates should have to detail a lot more about their experience to get into this role. I have seen councillors at the age of 20 and 22 who literally couldn't, decide what to have for lunch, being asked to, they just haven't had the life experience. They have been asked to make decisions or run as mayor a council that's turning over $300 and $400 million a year. It's a really extraordinary position, Alan, and I really think we have to do a lot more around what we get, what we seek, and what we pay for. We have to lift the standard dramatically.
Okay, Denise, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Dean. This is one of my passions, is what can I do as an individual? Can we sue these councillors? I mean, there must be some action. I'm so frustrated, I can't tell you. And so there must be some kind of action that a group can take. I went to the Randwick Council meeting, a couple of months ago. I actually said, put my hand up to speak, had put on the agenda and all the rest. And there was Layla from Albie Kitchen who was there. They would only allow one person to speak. So she got to talk and I didn't. I go to the local precinct meetings, which I think people need to be involved in as well. I'm just wanting to know, what is an action? Can we sue these people? Can I, demand that my rates not go towards the actions that are being conducted? There must be something that we can take an action against or do.
So, Denise, I wish I had an answer that said yes, but unfortunately you won't like my answer. What we have in all of the legislation in each state is that all councillors and, more importantly, more disturbingly, all staff are indemnified against any legal action by anyone. That includes you, me, or anyone. We can't sue them. And if we do manage to sue them for something, it's at our risk, our cost. And of course, they will throw our own millions of dollars in ratepayers' money at us to beat us because they don't want to lose. Trust me, I've sued a council. And when you lose and they come and take $500,000 off you for their costs, they teach you a lesson. So councils know that they've got control and they've gamed the system. What we know about CEOs, particularly, unlike other levels of government, CEOs are the unelected bureaucrat that's got all the money and all the power. And so what we actually need is smart councillors who realise that they can change the rules and they can do things. For example, that asking of questions, Denise, it's a very controlled environment for a reason. It's to prevent you from asking things they don't want you to ask or they haven't been able to rehearse the answer or control. What we have seen, and I know there's someone in the room with his hand up, Solomon, in his council, there's been a change where the community has, after 20 years, been allowed to ask public questions, and the walls didn't, suddenly turn to fire like everybody predicted. In fact, the community kind of went, cool, we might actually ask some more questions. The walls don't come down. There is this bluff narrative that many of these councils have. And so we actually really need to skill and train candidates, which is what we spend a lot of time doing, skilling them and training them to be on guard that the council officers are not necessarily their friend. They are there to manage, control and ensure they keep them away from the reality of we actually need to serve the community, not the corporation. And so it is really important, Denise, that people like you do show up, that you ask questions and that you advocate continually to new councillors and candidates that that's the kind of council you want, because it does get better and it does change when councillors, in the council I'm referring to, it took them 6 years to actually make this change from the first person starting. 6 years, but they finally made the change. And it's better. Don't give up.
Important message. All right, next up we have Anne.
Anne.
Yeah. Thank you, Dean. Appreciate you coming on. Would there be any advantage in having local councils acknowledged in the Australian Constitution?
I am dead against it, and I'll tell you why. They're desperate to do it because it would give them autonomy. And at the moment, despite all of the problems, if we were to put them in the Australian Constitution, that would remove them from state control. Now, don't get me wrong, state control is not working well. But to be fair, with the right government, with the right knowledge, state control can actually clip the wings very clearly of what council should be. And the way we would fix that, Anne, is we would actually put in a prescriptive list of these are the services that you can provide, and these are the thing, anything else you don't need to touch. That would change the game really, really well. But if we put them into the Australian Constitution, unfortunately, that would mean that they will spend all of their millions of dollars lobbying at a federal level to be able to act like the federal and state government and do whatever they want. The problem with that is that would be like unrestraining them and letting them go for it. We just don't want that to happen. That's why they've pushed so hard for years. For those of you who don't know, there are probably about 10 lobby groups that work for local councils across the country, and their combined income coming out of all of our councils is somewhere in the order of $40 million. So they are spending $40 million of ratepayers' money lobbying levels of government to give them more power and autonomy. We are the only organisation that opposes that. So, there's a lot. We don't want them in the federal constitution.
Next up, we have Robert Pasquale.
Hi, Robert.
G'day. Firstly, on my screen, I'm next to Mr. Adler, or Dr. Adler, and I feel very privileged. Firstly, I'd like to say, I can see I'm probably in the minority, I think, because it is a Jewish meeting. But what I was going to say is, if you're a person who's down on the world, if you're a person who was bullied at school and you feel very sour, you jump on the Palestinian bandwagon because they're the raucous anarchists who want to cause pain to everyone. If you're a free thinker, it doesn't necessarily mean you naturally jump onto the Jewish bandwagon. There shouldn't be any bandwagons. But I would sit here and say, and also quoting from A Life of Brian, maybe good or bad bringing that film up, but I'm going to say, what have the Palestinians ever given us apart from heartache? Now, this is not about being down on every Palestinian.
Robert, you've got to get to your question, mate.
Yeah.
Just okay. Brief question, not speeches.
No. I want to say, I'm open-minded, and I think the Jewish community have done a fantastic job for us. I've got two quotes, two suggestions. Firstly, if we know that the council is very vindictive, if you're working in your council area and put pressure on them, I'm sure that they will find a way to come back at you. So I would suggest we maybe work out of area. And the second suggestion I have is, because there's so much we have to do, maybe we just focus on little things at a time and focus on just getting the Australian flag flown and no other flag. And people say, oh, we're racist and we're not inclusive. We are including. We're including the care for 27 million people.
So Robert, was your question around flying the Australian flag?
Yeah, I think that was the question.
Yeah, so we're pretty big on that. We have no problem at all with culturally appropriate displays for certain times of the year being celebrated, like festivals or anything else. But we do very much agree that the Australian flag should be the only flag that is hoisted on town halls, because hoisting any other flag for a period of time, particularly we've seen with, Palestinian flag, simply promotes division and it doesn't bring the community together, it isolates. So we are very big on saying we should avoid anything that actually pulls people apart and isolates.
There'd be a lot of people that would agree with that position. Next up, we have Jeff.
Greetings, Dean. I was pinged by Stonington Council for illegal parking when I was on the way home from carrying my brother to hospital who was dying. They refused any consideration whatsoever in the circumstances, and they only gave up when they realized I was going to court. So it is behavior like that, which happens to be your Stonington Council, that causes me to contemplate that we've got a troika of governments in Australia that should actually be, two of them should be banned. One of them is state government, which has almost identical portfolios to the federal government, and the councils, which are definitely getting into foreign affairs and arguable immoral acts, as in my case. So what say you that we have a monarchy? I'm prepared to stand for kingship, but I have a feeling that I'll be up against it. What say ye?
Well, Jeff, I would say that I'd certainly swear allegiance to you as king before I would many others. I would definitely say that we get asked this question a lot, which one do we get rid of? And arguably we would say that state is a problem more than local councils, because one of the things we know is if we got rid of councils, which sounds really, really easy, the state would not know what to do. They don't know how to empty rubbish bins. They don't know how to clean streets. They don't know how to fix footpaths. For goodness sake, the local government minister of Victoria is also the roads minister, and the number one thing that's completely stuffed in Victoria is roads. So what we know is no matter which way the state comes at it, they're not really going to be able to do it well. But it is a really complex debate, because whichever one you take away, the other one's got to be able to backfill and skill. And one of the things that I certainly think that councils would do, which we know they would do, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the states are great, but if it cost the state $100 billion, it would cost the councils $200 billion, because they know how to add costs to anything they do. What costs you and I $5,000 is 10 times when they get their consultants and people around it. So I think they're both just as bad as each other in many respects.
There you go. All right, next up we have Solomon.
Oh dear.
Okay, sorry. Bring it up. Sorry about this. I'm just bringing it up for you, Dean. Dean, at the City of Melbourne, we saw the committee meeting earlier this year was overrun by pro-Palestinian protesters, and Jewish members of the public were turned away by police.
Yep.
The City of Yarra flies somewhere around 100 different flags each year or more that includes nations, lobby groups and other causes. City of Merribeck has spent how many meetings all over whether to fly or not fly a flag for Palestine, even in favour of local pride events, and then for how long? You've got Australia Day ceremonies, our National Day, that are being sidelined for Indigenous cultural events in favour over citizenship ceremonies. Some councils even confused as to which tribal elders they should be beholden to. How is any of this core business of local government in terms of roads, rates and rubbish?
It's not, Solomon. Thanks for the question. That's a great question. It's not at all. And if you think about what the role of local government is, it's to actually listen to the community and to respond to what they want. One of the, that's not 5 activists in the community. That's the whole community. What is it that the whole community wants? Now, of course, that's incredibly complex to be able to figure out. But one of the things we know, just so you're all aware, in both New South Wales and Victoria after the elections, one of the first things they have to do is come up with their plan for the term, so the 4-year term. In doing that, they often have gone out, the council officers have often gone out with consultants to the community and asked them about all the things that matter. The problem is that entire process has been co-opted and run by activists. So if you wonder why cities of like the City of Melbourne and the City of Yarra, for example, came up with the idea of, changing all street names to Indigenous names at an extraordinary cost, they haven't done it yet. It's because they actually went and formed a community panel and put 20 people on that panel who were Indigenous, which meant that instead of one person, which would have been the proportional representation on a 50 people panel, you had 20. So what you had was 20 times the Indigenous activism representative in the community on this panel that was making the decisions of what they were going to do for the next 4 years. This is the governance problem we have in councils, that no one is aware that all of this has been co-opted by activists. So when you see them put out their 4-year plan and you see their priorities being climate change, Indigenous, LGBTQ, it's actually not what the majority of residents would ask for. It's what a co-opted panel of activists got through.
Okay, so we don't have too much time left, so let's try to get very quickly through a couple of questions. We have Councillor Trevor Dance. Would you like to ask your question?
Mr. Dance.
Yeah, hi. Look, sorry, it's not a question. If you don't mind, I just want to just add some thought processes behind some comments there. I think it's relevant because I didn't know it was a jury's meeting, so I hope I'm allowed in here. I'm just boring old Australian. So
you're allowed in if you donate at the end.
Thank you. On the Palestine thing, from a council point of view, in our council, Hume, we had that raised last year. I was the only one who voted against it, just so you know. I voted against it. And I got a whole lot of abuse and a whole lot of other reasons. From the Palestinians, I got hate emails, hate this, hate everything. And that's all fine. So I took that on head on. Believe it or not, and I'll give the Palestinians due in this case, just so to be upfront there, they actually apologised to me in the end, because when they actually then went beyond the panic mode and the PA system saying Dan's didn't vote for this, blah, 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 they then went and listened to my speech. And I said, council is not the place for this. If it is the place for it, we should be asking for peace everywhere, not just Palestine, not just Israel. We got confrontations all around the world. So it should be for everyone. That's why I voted no. So just that's where we're, but it also puts councils in some of our councils didn't vote anyway because they got threats. And we don't want to have that in Australia, okay?
We've had death threats on councils in Victoria.
As well. So that's that one. Comments there on professionalism. Someone said they're either maybe retired or unemployed. Well, I'm not retired yet. I'm not unemployed. I'm actually a professional worker, a professional person. I look after some 1,400 staff throughout Australia in 44 retail outlets. So I'm one of those professionals there. And a lot of people say, why on council? And I keep saying, I don't know anymore. Because we really do need to get councillors on there who do have life experiences. We don't want councillors who lived home with mum and dad, don't know what rates are, don't know what the cost of living is. We don't want people on CEO panels who've never employed someone in their life that we have here on 400 grand, employing CEOs of 400,000. We don't want that. But that's something the public needs to do. We've got to find professionals who want to run, because someone said 25, 30 hours. I'll tell you, it's easy. And I do 40 something hours plus and more with work. So there's a lot of hours for those who are committed. There are also a lot of councillors who just turn up for the meeting to say, I'm on the screen tonight, not read anything, not prepared. They're the councillors you don't want. Yep. You want councillors who want to ask the hard questions. So move on to that.
Right. I just want to thank you, Trevor, because we're just at time, but you're one of the good councillors, so thank you for your...
Can I just say one more thing? Australian flags, right? Okay.
10 seconds.
Totally agree with it. And you're seeing too many councils on the documents where on the bottom of their page, the Australian flags removed. Yep. And it needs to stop. And I've obviously supported that, but we've got to find people out there. And I'll just add one thing about Dean said then, I'll wrap it up here. $3,500 you want an Indigenous sign, by the way, on a street sign is what's charged. On activists for election, we have a government here that are using MPs and federal MPs to go to council saying, we'll give you $1 million to this project, and it might cost, say, 4. So council gets over 3 million outside the 4-year, 10-year planning. It's happening here in Victoria. It's allowed to happen in this state, so they bypass everything else.
Okay.
As well. I'll finish. Move on.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. I said we've got a few good councillors with us in this Zoom call, so you're one of them. Thank you. And that's all we have time for with questions. Apologies to people we didn't reach. I know Victor wanted to just encourage everyone. He's put his details in the chat. If you're here to volunteer he's in the New South Wales election. He's organising volunteers and he's done a lot of amazing work. So we always support that call, and he's helping us get a lot more involved in council matters, so it's very good. But I want to thank you, Dean, for an excellent Zoom. We can see the questions are still coming in the chat. a lot of interest. And I know you mentioned early on how to follow Council Watch and stay in touch. Maybe repeat it again, just for those who.
Yeah, just jump on our website. You can sign up as a free subscriber. You just pop in your email and your name, pick your local council anywhere in Australia, and we'll make sure that you get information relevant to your local area.
Thank you. Well, thanks again so much for joining us, Dean. Thank you to Council Watch. Thank you everyone for joining, and look forward to, we'll see everyone next week.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening.